Claire's breath formed small clouds in the cold autumn air as she walked beneath the skeletal oaks. The wind tugged at her scarf, stealing warmth from her cheeks. In her hands, a steaming container of chili radiated comforting heat, a small island against the creeping chill. 2 blocks away, on a cracked park bench, sat the man she quietly cared for, known only as the vet. His faded military jacket told stories of battles and lost years, his weathered face etched with silent pain. Most people ignored him, crossing the street or averting their gaze. But Claire saw beyond the surface, a man burdened by invisible scars, carrying memories too sharp to speak aloud. Tonight, as she settled beside him, his eyes met hers with a flicker of fragile gratitude. Then his hand trembled, pulling from his jacket a folded, crumpled paper, something that would change everything. Claire's life was a steady rhythm of quiet routines, mornings spent organizing books, afternoons reading stories to children seeking escape, evenings preparing meals for a man society forgot. Her kindness was a secret ritual, a thread weaving meaning into her otherwise simple existence. But it wasn't without hardship. Gossip and judgment trailed her steps. "Why waste your time?" some whispered. "He won't change." One woman's sharp words cut deep. "Feeding him only enables failure." Claire swallowed the sting, holding on to memories of her father, a veteran haunted by invisible wars. The man on the bench was a reflection of that same broken pride. She never pushed for answers, but questions gnawed at her. Who was he really? What storm brewed beneath his tired eyes? Tonight, his voice cut through the cold air. "You don't know the half of it." The folded letter in his hands felt like a weight of years, fragile yet unyielding. Claire's fingers trembled as she unfolded the worn, creased paper, ink faded and blurred as if touched by tears. The letter spoke of distant towns, long past battles, promises whispered in desperate moments. "I lost more than my home. I lost myself," the words etched in faded script. Her gaze lifted to his haunted eyes, raw and searching. "You don't have to carry it alone anymore," she whispered. A bitter laugh escaped him. "One warm meal won't fix years of silence. Does anyone care enough to listen?" Claire's throat tightened. "I do." Around them, the city hummed on, indifferent, yet alive. He folded the letter carefully, voice dropping to a whisper. "There's more. Things I'm not proud of, things that could put you in danger." Her heart raced. Danger? Why me? The vet's gaze held a mixture of warning and trust. "You're the only one who ever stopped to see me. But maybe that's about to change." Leaves swirled around their feet, a cold breath of autumn nature holding its breath. "Why didn't you tell anyone before?" Claire's voice was gentle, trembling, and with curiosity. "Shame," he answered. "Pride. I thought if they knew where I ended up, they'd see me as a failure, a ghost." Tentatively, Claire reached for his arm, her touch soft and steady. "You're not a failure. You survived. You deserve to be seen." For the first time, a flicker of hope softened the hardness in his eyes. His voice dropped to a whisper. "There's something else. Something that could change everything for both of us." Claire's pulse quickened. What secret lay beneath the silence? James Monroe was no longer just the vet. He revealed himself as a decorated captain lost to the world's memory. From his jacket, he pulled a battered leather wallet and an old military ID. The photograph showed a proud younger man, a hero declared missing years ago. Claire's breath caught. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" she asked softly. "Because when I hit rock bottom, the world forgot me. I was supposed to be untouchable, but I became invisible." Rain began tapping gently on the pavement. "Before I disappeared, I promised to care for my unit's families if anything happened to me. That promise kept me going." Claire's eyes widened. His story was no longer just about survival. It was about a mission, a promise that demanded fulfillment. James's voice lowered as he revealed shadows lurking behind his promise. "There are people, powerful, dangerous, who don't want me found or my promise fulfilled." Claire's heart pounded at the weight of those words. "What kind of danger?" she asked, voice trembling but steady. James glanced around nervously. "Heads bigger than me. corruption that silenced many, and you're now part of this. The rain intensified, cold drops washing over them like an ominous sign. But Claire's resolve hardened. Fear might be a storm, but courage was their umbrella. Together, they would face what no one dared speak aloud. The days that followed were a whirlwind. Claire's quiet life was replaced by meetings with veterans groups, journalists, and allies. She and James pieced together fragments of a hidden truth, each discovery a crack in a long-standing silence. The weight of the secret pressed on Claire's chest, but so did the fierce hope that their voices might finally break through. She watched James grow stronger, not just in body but in spirit, reclaiming his place as a leader, a protector, a man fighting not just for himself, but for those still unheard. James's story ignited whispers in the community. Some embraced it with open hearts. Others recoiled, uncomfortable with the truths it revealed. The local paper featured his journey, a soldier lost and found, a promise that refused to die. Claire stood beside him at a town hall, feeling the buzz of anticipation and resistance. They were no longer just two people sharing a meal and a B4. Secret. They were a force awakening a town to the forgotten. The fight ahead would not be easy, but every step forward was a victory carved from courage. As James shared his story in schools and veterans centers, young faces listened with wide eyes, some nodding in silent recognition. His words weren't just history, they were a lifeline. Claire traveled with him, watching as connection blossomed between storyteller and listener. The pain of past battles softened in the warmth of shared understanding. Each talk was a healing thread, stitching broken lives back together. And with every story told, the invisible began to become visible. Claire's world had transformed. The quiet librarian was now a linchpin in a growing movement. Long nights of planning and organizing had become a mission. Exhaustion tugged at her edges, but purpose fueled her steps. She learned that kindness was an action, sometimes messy and demanding, but always worth it. Watching James reclaim his voice, she found her own strength, a courage born from seeing someone truly and refusing to look away. Fundraisers blossomed, drawing strangers united by compassion. The town, once indifferent, opened its arms to veterans' families who had suffered in silence. Claire and James stood at the heart of this awakening. The money raised wasn't just for survival, it was a promise kept, a future built. But to the crowds and cheers, Claire caught James's eye, seeing gratitude deeper than words. This was more than charity. It was justice. Despite progress, the threats lingered. Anonymous warnings, shadowed figures at dusk, moments where fear knotted Claire's stomach. But James refused to back down. "We're in the light now," he said, voice steady. "No shadow can hide us forever." Their bond deepened in adversity, a silent promise to protect each other. Claire learned that bravery wasn't absence of fear, but choosing hope anyway. A documentary crew arrived, eager to capture James's journey. Filming brought new challenges, exposing wounds long hidden, revisiting memories too raw to share easily. But it also brought healing. Through the lens, James found his story was not just survival, but resurrection. Claire supported him quietly, her presence a steady anchor amid the emotional tides. The cameras didn't just record, they revealed. The documentary premiered to mixed emotions. Some wept openly, others sat in silent reflection. Conversations sparked, breaking taboos and fostering empathy. Claire and James watched from the crowd, hearts full yet heavy. The story had touched something deep, reminding everyone of the cost of forgetting and the power of remembering together. The path ahead remained difficult, but the seed of change had been planted. Claire's family began to heal alongside her. Her sister's messages grew from cautious support to pride and love. The distance of misunderstanding shrank, replaced by shared purpose. Claire found solace in their newfound closeness, realizing that her fight was not just for strangers on their bench, but for a community, including her own. Healing was contagious. James received a letter from an old commanding officer. The paper was yellowed, the ink faded, but the message was clear, a call to remember, to reconnect. The past came rushing back, camaraderie, sacrifice, honor. It was a lifeline pulling him from the shadows. Claire watched as a guarded man softened, the weight on his shoulders easing. Memories once locked away became the foundation for healing. The promise to care for those left behind burned brighter than ever. Community volunteers rallied, inspired by James's courage and Claire's compassion. They formed support groups, organized drives, and built bridges to those still isolated. The town was awakening, one kind act at a time. Claire felt the power of collective heartbeats beating louder than fear. Each handshake, each shared story, was a step toward belonging. The invisible became visible, the unheard finally heard. Despite the progress, Claire faced moments of doubt. Exhaustion gnawed at her resolve. Shadows of old fears whispered to retreat. But a quiet strength rose within her. Drawn from every smile she'd witnessed, every life touched, she remembered her father's silent battles and knew that kindness was more than comfort. It was courage in action. She would keep fighting. One warm meal, one open heart at a time. James mentored young veterans, guiding them through turbulent transitions. His scars became lessons, his story a beacon. He met their eyes with honesty and hope, breaking cycles of silence. Claire often sat nearby, watching the fragile healing take root. The pain was real, but so was the promise of a new beginning. Together they built a bridge from past wounds to future strength. The town declared an annual day of remembrance and support for veterans and their families. Claire and James helped lead the ceremonies, honoring sacrifice and resilience. The community gathered beneath the oaks where their journey began. Voices joined in song and silence. Tears and laughter mingled, a mosaic of healing and hope. It was more than tradition, it was a promise renewed. Claire found solace in quiet moments beneath the oaks. The rustling leaves whispered stories of change, inevitable, renewing, hopeful. Each visit was a meditation, a reminder that even the smallest seed could grow into something magnificent. She carried this peace back into her daily battles, her heart a little lighter, her purpose clearer. James's health wavered, reminders that battles lingered beyond memory. Claire cared for him with unwavering tenderness, learning patience and the language of love in silence. Their bond deepened beyond words, a quiet strength carrying them through uncertain days. Together, they faced the fragility of life with fierce hope. Media attention grew, shining light on their journey, but with visibility came scrutiny and skepticism. Not everyone welcomed their truth. Threats surfaced, testing their resolve. Yet, each challenge strengthened their commitment. They stood unshaken, a testament to courage born in the darkest storms. A local school invited James and Claire to share their story with students. Nervous but determined, they spoke of resilience, hope, and kindness. Young faces reflected empathy and curiosity. Claire saw in their eyes the seeds of change, future generations learning to see beyond shadows, to believe in the power of compassion. Claire began writing her reflections, pouring her heart into words. Her stories captured the complexity of kindness, the struggle, the reward, the quiet moments of grace. Her voice added a new layer to their mission, inspiring others to believe that even the smallest act could ripple into a revolution. The pen became her sword. The documentary featuring James's story premiered to a packed room. Tears glistened on faces as raw, honest moments played on screen. Pain, hope, redemption. The silence afterward was profound, filled with unspoken understanding. Claire and James felt the weight of their journey shared with a wider world. The film wasn't just a story. It was a mirror reflecting collective wounds and healing. For many, it was the first step toward empathy. Claire's relationship with her sister deepened as understanding blossomed, distance bridged by shared purpose and newfound pride. Late-night calls turned from tentative to heartfelt. Family dinners became spaces of healing and hope. Claire realized that kindness could mend not only strangers, but also those closest to her. The journey wasn't just external, it was deeply personal. James reconnected with his former unit, rekindling bonds that time and trauma had strained. Old letters and photographs resurfaced, stories exchanged with laughter and tears. The brotherhood that once defined him found new life. These moments reminded James that no matter how far he'd fallen, he belonged. To those who understood the cost of sacrifice, community outreach grew as more people joined the cause. Volunteers built programs for mental health, housing, and employment support. Claire's quiet meals inspired larger efforts, each hand extended a lifeline. The town was no longer bystander, it was a cradle of care. The ripple effect of one woman's compassion had become a tide of change. James and Claire celebrated small victories. A veteran reunited with family, a successful job placement, a healed friendship. Each milestone was a triumph over despair. The weight of the past remained, but hope carved a new path. Their story was not just survival, it was rebirth. Claire found joy in simple moments, a child's smile at the library, the warmth of morning sun through her window, James's laughter echoing softly. These were the threads weaving her fragile happiness, reminders that light exists even in the darkest places. Her courage was quiet but relentless. James dedicated time to mentoring young veterans facing struggles he knew too well. His scars became lessons, his story a guide. He met their pain with empathy, offering hope without false promises. Claire watched these connections bloom, seeing the power of shared stories to heal invisible wounds. The town held its first annual Veterans Day ceremony since James's return. Under the sprawling oaks, voices united in remembrance and gratitude. Claire and James led the crowd in a moment of silence, honoring sacrifice and renewal. The community's heart beat stronger, a testament to collective healing. Claire faced moments of exhaustion and self-doubt. The fight was long and the pain often felt heavy, but she learned that strength wasn't absence of fear, it was perseverance despite it. Her quiet courage inspired others, her resilience a beacon. James's story caught national attention, opening doors to platforms where his voice could reach farther. He spoke candidly about trauma, hope, and the power of kindness. The personal became political as conversations about veterans' care surged. Claire stood proudly by his side, her faith in humanity renewed. New challenges emerged with increased visibility, bureaucracy, media pressures, and skepticism. Navigating these storms required patience and integrity. Claire and James remained steadfast, grounded in their mission. The fight for truth was never easy, but it was necessary. Claire often found peace in walks beneath the oaks where it all began. The rustling leaves whispered stories of change and resilience. Nature's cycles reminded her that healing is a process, sometimes slow, sometimes sudden, always hopeful. James celebrated personal milestones, sobriety, reconnection, purpose. Each step forward was a victory over shadows. Claire celebrated with him, their bond deepening into an unbreakable partnership built on trust and love. Together, they established a scholarship fund for veterans' children, investing in futures filled with possibility. Education became a new promise, a way to honor sacrifice by nurturing dreams. The community rallied behind the initiative, their hope growing stronger. Claire's quiet acts inspired others to start initiatives, meals, mentorships, outreach programs, spreading compassion beyond their town. What began as one meal on a bench rippled outward, creating networks of kindness and support. James revisited battlefields, both physical and emotional, finding moments of peace and release. The scars remained, but so did healing. He walked with quiet dignity, embracing his past while looking to the future. Their community's transformation became a model for others. Stories of hope and resilience traveled far, proving that empathy and action can change lives and towns. Claire and James watched with quiet pride as kindness multiplied. They published a memoir, weaving their journeys into a tapestry of struggle and triumph. The book became a beacon for many, a testament to the power of seeing, believing, and standing together. Workshops on trauma and healing grew from their experience, empowering others to tell their truths and find community. Claire led sessions with grace, her voice steady and warm. The movement for change became unstoppable. Old wounds reopened but were met with newfound strength and understanding. Together they learned that healing is not linear. It's messy, painful, and ultimately redemptive. Claire transformed her library into a hub of hope, hosting exhibits and events celebrating veterans' contributions and stories. Generations connected, bridging past and present through shared humanity. James received honors from veteran organizations, his journey symbolizing resilience and the power of second chances. Yet, humility remained his core, a man who fought not just battles abroad but the war within. They quietly celebrated the anniversary of their first meeting on the bench. Reflecting on the journey, they marveled at how a simple act of kindness had blossomed into a legacy of hope and change. New friendships blossomed, forming a chosen family bound by compassion, courage, and shared stories. Together, they weathered storms, celebrated victories, and forged paths of healing. Beneath the skeletal oaks, Claire and James sat side by side, the fading light wrapping around them like a promise. Their journey, born of kindness shaped by courage, had become a beacon for all who longed to be seen and heard. The meal that started it all fed not just a body, but a soul. And in that shared warmth, they found something eternal.